start today talking about contraception. And this is a tough topic. Who in here has had a hard time talking about contraception before? Man, you guys are pros apparently. I remember I was in college and I knew like contraception wasn't okay, but I'll be really honest, I didn't know that much about contraception. I knew some types of contraception could work as an abortifacient, right, and could kill babies, but I didn't know how to argue contraception entirely. Like I knew what the church taught, but like it was kind of uncomfortable, it was a little confusing, not completely clear. I remember I was sitting with a couple friends who were in the jacuzzi, and one's Catholic, one's not Catholic, and they're just coming after me about contraception, same-sex marriage. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm just like the small Catholic right here. I don't know what to say to you. Like, I know that it's not healthy for the woman. I know that a lifestyle, right, of living out your same-sex attraction in a sexual way leads to a lot of brokenness for the person who experiences it. But I couldn't really answer the question solidly. And so I want to help you guys feel strong in your responses to have to do with these issues. So let's talk about contraception. So I don't know if I showed this picture yet, but I remember the first picture is what? Symbol for Women's March, right? Women's March. So Women's March, I want you guys to remember this. The original suffragettes, right? The early people really hanging, listen up you guys, really waving that feminist banner were women who were pro-life. It wasn't until the 60s that all of a sudden that mindset changed and that the pro-abortion voice was pulled into the women's movement. The women's feminist movement was the pro-life movement. They weren't separated. There were very few pro-abortion laws on the books when the feminist movement got started, right? The right to vote. So it's important that we remember this. And so as women are trying to exclude you from being a part of that women's movement, those women's marches, they're saying that your value, your voice as a woman, or your voice as a man who cares about women doesn't matter. And so I want you guys to know that you can stand up to these ideas. Do not be afraid, because guess what? I know each and every single one of you cares about women, right? You do. And you can respond to their questions with that common ground. Whether it's abortion, whether it's contraception, whether you talk about it from the perspective of the impact of group 1 carcinogens on the woman's body, you name it, you can. But here's the problem that's taking place. Planned Parenthood a number of years ago put up this image on Valentine's Day. And instead of this idea, I had so many friends I remember who were waiting, oh my gosh, it's Valentine's Day, I wonder if he's going to propose. I'm, hearing these stories, I've got my roommates talking about, oh, is he going to propose today? And this picture comes up. And will you be my birth control? And instead of a little box, it's this condom there. And what a radical change. One man getting down on his knee before the woman and offering his life to her. That symbolism of coming down to his knee out of reverence for her, out of love for her. Guys, we talked about this idea of providing safety, right? And respect and the strength of your character toward that woman. All of that's supposed to be present in that moment. But instead, this is the attitude we have today. Will you be my birth control? Will you make a deep sexual, intimate connection with me with no promise of a future? I could walk away that night, I could walk away tomorrow, I could walk away 3 years from now. No woman actually wants this in the long run. No woman wants this. And this is the type of mindset that we have when we're using hormonal contraception. We're saying, I'm okay hooking up with you and having no sense of permanence, no sense of long-term love. I'm okay saying right now, I just want to use you. I want to interact with you for the sake of my own pleasure. That's the message we are giving across when we use contraceptive type of things, right? And condoms, same mindset. So I want you guys to have that in mind the whole time here. So here's the deal. 2 studies came out in 2012. Guttmacher Institute said that 98% of Catholic women have used some form of artificial contraception. That's a lot of Catholics. I'm not that surprised to hear this. That being said, I don't know if that number is necessarily true. It's a pretty high number, right? But it also is the Guttmacher Institute, right? And so they're Planned Parenthood's right-hand person for doing any type of research. So they might be trying to inflate that number, be like, come on, all Catholics use contraception. Well, why not you? You know, the church isn't updated with the times. The second statistic, same year, 2012, said 82% of Catholics believe that birth control is morally acceptable. That's also a very high number. And so that leads us to the issue in our culture right now that not only is contraception very regular among non-Catholics, but it's within our own church, right? It's the truth of the matter. Some in this room might even be on some form of contraception. Likelihood is very high. So here's what the church teaches. In its teachings, it's really clarified what marital love is, what the conjugal act, so the church talks about the conjugal act, that's sex inside marriage between the husband and the wife. Every sexual act is meant to have two elements. Every sexual act is supposed to be unitive and procreative. So let's break that down. What that means is that it's supposed to be for the good of the spouses, because we've learned something yesterday. We learned that sex has consequences, right? That can go really bad. But we also learned that sex is good, didn't we? It bonds two people together. That our bodies are being drawn toward each other for a purpose. Sex is good. It's for the good of the spouses. It helps them bonding them together, creating a connection for one another. Those chemicals released during sex even create a desire for one another. That's why it's problematic when we're looking at pornography, because you're creating a desire for other women besides your spouse, and vice versa, right? Don't we want to have that longing, deep connection for one another? Those reminders throughout the day that when we're not together, there's this longing desire for each other, because the reality is a lot of these speakers have gotten up here and said it. Marriage is difficult. Layla Miller said this to you yesterday. There are times where I can't stand my spouse, right? And sex is one of those gifts to help continue that bond between the husband and wife. The second part of every sexual act, A, has to be unitive, right? So that means for the good of the spouses to unite the two. And two, it has to be procreative. So that means open to life. The babies have got to come, right? That's a part of the attitude of marriage and every sexual encounter. When you take one of those out, it's not just the fact that we're killing a baby, which in and of itself is an atrocity, amen? Amen. But it's also the fact that it's starting to create damage to that relationship and how the two view each other. So we're going to continue to work through this. But if we were to kind of go through and understand this bigger picture, what does unitive and procreative mean? It means that when we have sex, when we get married, we're supposed to be totally giving ourselves to each other. That we're holding nothing back. That I'm not going, oh, I'm still kind of sleeping with this girl that I dated 5 years ago. We hook up now and again. No, I am totally yours. Isn't that what we want with someone that we're intimately involved with, right? We totally want to belong to one another, which then requires that we're faithful to each other, right? That there are no extramarital relationships, that there are no extra girlfriends, boyfriends on the side, that spouse isn't looking at pornography. That's infidelity. Because it's also creating that chemical cocktail that we talked about, right, in the brain, where we're no longer longing for that partner, we're longing for other people as well. We're not keeping our eyes on the prize, on the gift that we have received in our spouse. Every sexual act is meant to be fruitful. So what that's saying is that your marriage, your sexuality is meant to come to something. It's not just for the pleasure of the two of you, but your relationship is meant to impact and go out and love and share and draw people in. And that starts with having a child. Because when we have a child, what happens? That child then draws us into a community to welcome more people into our home. To welcome more people and their struggles and their joys, and to be together. And last, within this unitive and procreative element, we also have the idea of permanence. Till death do us part. How wonderful is this idea that we know there will be someone there, that until one of us dies, they are going to be there, totally ours, faithfully ours, and that there is something fruitful that will come from this relationship. It's not just about us, but our our love is so great that it goes beyond us. It transforms the world around us and our relationships. This is what the church is teaching. And I don't know about you, but I would love this. We have enough broken relationships. You guys, all of us have been a part of a generation that has seen multiple generations of divorce, sometimes within our own homes. And even if that divorce hasn't taken place within our own homes, the struggles of our own parents have deeply impacted us, right? And I don't know about you, but I am standing here saying I have had enough. I want to stand for authentic love in our culture. And you know what that means? We've talked about the sign of the cross and what that means, right? Life-giving, self-giving love. Well, look at that cross. He was bloody, he was bruised, and he was beaten. That's your journey. Pick up your cross and follow him. Right? We can do it. You guys can. Oh my gosh, you guys, I know you can. Each of you have it within you. And this is a journey we are so blessed to be a part of, and you are blessed to have the education that you're receiving here. You're blessed to be able to just about an hour and a half to go and sit before our Lord in his presence and ask him to heal every element of brokenness in your life and ask him to draw him closer to you. So let's talk about contraception practically. What are some of the benefits of being on hormonal contraception? Well, we've already heard this from Dr. Nadal the other day. It gives you larger breasts, right? Lighter and predictable periods, or maybe no period at all. I don't know about you ladies, but that sounds great, right? Improved complexion, right? Oh, I'm just on it for my acne. No pregnancy, right? And it can help with weight loss at times, but also in some cases it can go in the opposite direction where your hormones are so out of whack that now you're also gaining weight. But for a lot of young girls, they like being on the pill because it can help with weight loss as well. So these are some great benefits, right? And even if you just cut out the fact that you can't get pregnant, oh, I'm not on the pill because I don't want to get pregnant. Well, guess what? I went to a small college, Catholic university. 2 of my roommates were on the pill. Guess what? All of a sudden, you're alone together, you really love this guy, and things start to go too far, and you remember, oh yeah, I'm on the pill. That wasn't the reason why I'm on it, but I'm not going to get pregnant. I'm safe. I'm okay. Well, that leads to a type of lifestyle that we start justifying slowly and slowly. And this is what happens to a lot of young girls, especially because a lot of girls are put on the pill at 12 and 13 years old. They don't fully know what the pill is. Later on, they understand what it is. I'm on it for my acne. Oh, hey, I can have sex tonight. Doesn't matter. I won't get pregnant. As we know, there are many other risks involved. And how we mentioned the fact, this is really important. I've worked in these crisis pregnancy centers. And in these crisis pregnancy centers, good 8 out of the 10 girls that came out were not only on one type of hormonal contraception, but usually using 2 or 3 methods of contraception. And they would still get pregnant now. Okay. Contraception is not a guarantee that you will not get pregnant. So here's part of the impact. Let's just look at it for a second, you guys. Look at this. Blood clotting that can lead to heart attack, stroke. The blood clotting can take place in your legs and lungs. Megan. This girl, Megan, is an Olympic-bound athlete. Megan O'Henry, and she was headed to the Olympics a few years ago. Guess what happened? She ended up experiencing some blood clotting because of the pill. She did not end up going to the Olympics, and her Olympic career, her athletic career, was destroyed. She's speaking out against the impact of hormonal contraception. She's not the only one. Even Anderson Cooper has featured interviews with parents and different people whose children have been impacted by the pill. If you go to different things, you can go to the website and look up the impact of the pill. You guys, there are people whose lives have been radically changed very poorly because of health risks that have come about from taking the pill. So you take the pill, here are some other side effects. 5 times more likely to experience hypertension, 3 times more likely to have migraines, 2 times more likely to get HPV because you're more sexually active. Also, you're leaving your body more vulnerable to certain cancers, right? Within the lower regions of your body, ladies. You're more likely to, so Yaz and Yasmin, I just want to throw this out here. Yaz and Yasmin were 2 different types, it's a type of hormonal contraception, right? Guess what? These attorneys don't care about you. They were advertising on TV about Yaz and Yasmin because guess what? they were actually taking cases against Yasny because women were so negatively impacted by these types of contraception that they were saying, hey, there's money in this. These are destroying women's lives. I want to hop in. I can make some money. So attorneys were advertising to anyone who was using this, hey, there might be money in this. You could get some sort of financial gain. That's how bad some of these contraceptives are. And not a lot of people are willing to go up against these pharmaceutical companies because they have a lot of money too. So in a lot of the cases when they go up against them, they don't always win. But there was a case where they have had some successes. You have examples of, we're always talking about mental illness today. Well, has anyone mentioned to you that when you're on the pill, you have a much higher likelihood toward depression, anxiety, and nervousness? You guys, why is it that, ladies, we've taken the bait? We're like, okay, no big deal, I'll take it. Not only that, it changes your libido. There are couples, married couples, heading into the counseling rooms, talking. You want to know what one of the questions they're being asked by the therapist, by the psychologist? How long has it been since you last had sex? All of a sudden, they're looking at each other, kind of surprised. Oh, it's been like 6 months. It's been 2 years. I hadn't really thought about that. Why? Because when you're on the pill, it changes your libido. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So that's your sex drive, right? And sometimes they're just not even noticing it because their bodies aren't geared up and ready to go as such. I know, we might not imagine that as young people today, right, with their hormones, but that can happen when you're taking chemicals that alter your body. So what is the makeup of the pill? Well, there's some forms of either a synthetic version of estrogen and progesterone. Like, you'll hear things like progestogen, different types of, they're synthetic forms of estrogen and progesterone. We have natural estrogen and progesterone in our bodies, right? But guess what? Synthetic estrogen and progesterone are actually group 1 carcinogens. What is that? Cancer-causing agent, right? Group 1 carcinogen is a cancer-causing agent. Let's take a look at this for a second. The pill is a cancer-causing agent, carcinogen, recognized by the United Nations. Next, cancer research in the UK. Breast cancer is more common among women who take hormone replacement therapy and the pill for long periods of time. Next, not just Timmerie saying this. Time, Health, and Family Study, quote, a curious link between birth control pills and prostate cancer, boys. Let's just think about that. There's hormone replacement therapy taking place. There's estrogen in the water that is being filtered into our water because they're not able to filter out all this estrogen because guess what? The girls are urinating it out. And so it's in our water. There's studies all over coming out of France, coming out of Colorado, talking about how there's so much estrogen in the water that fish today are not only becoming infertile, and sometimes having infertility issues for multiple generations of the fish because of this exposure to estrogen in the water, but also that they're not fully developing their sexual organs. Interesting. Another study, Journal of the National Cancer Institute. Oral contraceptive use has been associated with an increase in the risk of breast cancer in young women. In 2003, Columbia University study, quote, National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences added estrogen to its list of known cancer-causing agents. Breast Cancer Prevention Institute, bcpinstitute.org. Breast Cancer Prevention Institute, fantastic resource. Dr. Angela Lanfranchi is a mentor of mine. Dr. Nadal also works with her. Please pray for her. She's actually very sick. She single-handedly cut off the breasts of thousands upon thousands of women. Why? Because they have breast cancer and she's helping to save their lives. Well, she's done a ton of research along with Dr. Nadal looking at the fact that hormonal contraception, like these studies I just showed you, and abortion significantly increase your risk of breast cancer and other types of cancers. So, what's going on here, you guys? Why is it that we women have bought the lie that we'll take a pill that will potentially cause risk of cancer, that will also cause us to have mood swings? I have a lot of friends who have said that they have siblings, especially guys, who are like, yeah, my girlfriend was on the pill. I told her to get off of it. I don't want her acting like that. She's having anxiety and mood swings. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how common this is. Guys don't even like women being on the pill for that reason. They like it for the sexual reason. But here's the deal. I don't know any man in this room, or just about anywhere, who would be willing to take something that they knew was a group 1 carcinogen, would swell up their lower regions, that would cause them to be moody, anxious, depressed, change their appetite, potentially cause blood clotting. Any of you men interested? Why are we expecting it of women? And why are we taking the bait, ladies? I think that it would help if, we're guys, because guys are clearly I think because our lower regions are more internal and we can't see everything that's going on, just like with the STDs sometimes, we're more willing to go along with the bait of what the world's telling you, that you need to be freed from your bonds of fertility, that in order to go to college, in order to have a successful career, you have to be on the pill. You have to have access to abortion. I'm not the only one, but I'm a testament to this. I have not only a graduate degree, but I am working within the field of my choice. And there are a lot of women who can say that, and I didn't need the pill, and I didn't need abortion, and I didn't need to have the freedom to sleep around with who I wanted. You get there with hard work, discipline, and self-control. That's how you get there, you guys. And we cannot forget that along this journey, we need the grace of God working with us, because we've talked about the desire for sexual intimacy. Is it easy? No. But will it bring you to a deeper life of happiness? Absolutely. So it's just another example. 2011, the USA Today reported breast cancer cases from 1980 at 640,000, and in 2006 at 1.6 million. There's all of a sudden this huge increase in cancer. Well, this is the same time when the pill is becoming increasingly more common in our culture. I can't imagine the difference between 2010 and 2018, because what happened right around 2010? The HHS mandating that the government provide free hormonal contraception for all of you ladies in here. That's what it did. My friend who could no longer afford contraception in college, she was trying to scrape together her pennies to afford it, wasn't on the pill for a while, and I could praise the Lord. I had the opportunity to talk to her. All of a sudden it's free. She can be on the pill again. Took about another year to convince her to get off the pill. She was taking it for health reasons. But she was also dating a man who was about 5 years older than her. Not to mention that he had previously been married. She's not very old. That's a lot of baggage to enter into in your life. So here's something really interesting, you guys. We've got to check this out. Pheromones. Has anyone heard about a pheromone in here before? Okay, a handful of yes. What? Yesterday. Yeah, that should have been a trick question. Were you guys listening? Remember we learned about men and pheromones, and that men preferred the t-shirts of women who are fertile and not contracepting, right? That's what we talked about. That's a review of yesterday. Well, let's look at this a little bit more. So here's what happened. Pheromones are how we relate to each other on the level of smell, right? Male and female during our childbearing years, especially for the women, right? I gave the example from the Smithsonian, some research out of Israel as well, that even animals have this, right? I was telling you how the female hog smells the male hog's pheromones, and what does she do? She presents her rear end to them, saying, let's get together, let's make a family, because our bodies are called toward each other. None of you are allowed to do that, just making that clear. So our pheromones are released in our bodies from our armpits and our lower regions, right? So essentially, here's what happened. Fertility in women. Women, when they were fertile, took these t-shirts and smelled the t-shirts. And they chose the t-shirts of men who had a complementary biological chemistry to them. So what does that mean? A chemistry, a type of DNA essentially, that was different from theirs in order to have a healthier offspring, a healthier baby, right? So they were looking through the sense of smell and pheromones for a potential spouse, a lifelong commitment, because that's what our body's calling us to, as the chemicals point to, for someone who's going to help create a person that's going to be healthy? Well, what happens is contracepting women who are on the pill, we're actually looking for a similar biological makeup and chemistry in this man. And here's what happens. When you look for someone who's similar to you in your biochemical makeup, well, there's a stronger likelihood for disease. Why is this? Because when you are on the pill, your body as a woman is in the state of pseudo-pregnancy. So guys, listen to this. She's in a state of pseudo-pregnancy. Her body's tricked into thinking that she's pregnant. So she's now attracted to people who will protect her, who are familiar to her, like her father, like her brothers, family members, who her body should know are safe to be around. Interesting, isn't it? Guess what? A couple that's been living together, maybe they're married, they've been contracepting. Let's just say I get married to my boyfriend the first 2 years, we're not ready to have kids yet, so we contracept for 2 years. We're contracepting before we get married too. Well, I get off the pill, what happens? The level of sexual interest decreases between me and my partner. The level of interest in that person overall also decreases because the biochemical makeup, the chemistry between the two of us and the pheromones are less interesting. I could tell you stories of friends and family members who have been on the pill. A dear family member of mine had been sleeping with this girl on and off for about 7 to 8 years. And all of a sudden, he would talk to me like, yeah, I just can't stand the way she smells. And he's all of a sudden saying stuff like this. We were talking about the pheromones. He was interested in her. And he was talking about how his wife, who he had not been with for a number of years, how he loved the way she smelled. Kind of interesting, huh? How these things work out. And again, just to reemphasize, men prefer the t-shirts of women who were fertile. Women who had the potential to not just create, but carry life. This is an incredible thing that God created our bodies to be this way. I want to share with you just one more study here, very briefly. So there is an anthropologist by the name of Lionel Tiger, and he did some research. Look at a unique name, huh? He studies animals. I mentioned that, Lionel Tiger. What a unique name. He has a book called The Decline of the Male. Fantastic book. You guys, anyone in here should check it out. It's a little heavy, but you can breeze through, look at some of the studies. So this is what he did. There is a type of monkey in the Caribbean that has three partners, 3 sexual partners, exclusively 3. So the alpha male Austin has 3 sexual partners in his little tribe of monkeys. Well, here's what happened. They decided to study monkeys. What can we learn about humans from monkeys? Well, here's one type of animal that has some form of exclusive relationships, not quite. I don't know, I know a lot of people who are having at least 3 sexual partners today, right? It's true. Anyway, so he has 3 at a time. Here's what happens. They pump 2 of the monkeys with Depo-Provera shot. That's hormonal contraception, right? Guess what happens? Guess what? Okay. So basically, long story short, right? The alpha male stops interacting sexually with those 2 monkeys, replaces them with 2 of the fertile monkeys. Then what happens? They continue. He doesn't bring them back because they're on the Depo-Provera shot. What ends up happening? They end up putting all the female monkeys on Depo-Provera. They put all the female monkeys on Depo-Provera. Guess what? The male monkeys no longer are interested in the female monkeys. They no longer have completed sexual interaction. They explore the female monkeys' bodies, but they do not have completed sexual interaction, right? They then start searching each other's bodies just a little bit here. Is this anything, right? The male monkeys do. Is this anything we're seeing in our world right now? We're changing the way men and women are relating to one another on a biochemical level. So we have to look. Here's a brief list of different types of abortifacient, so contraceptions that work also as abortion. I showed this to you earlier in the week. So to summarize, what is sex for? For the good of the spouses and the procreation and education of children, right? When we step out of that, there are any number of damages that take place, and we see that on a chemical level as well. And this is what I'll leave you with. John Paul II said this, and I think that we need to take this to contraception. The personalistic norm confirms this. The the person is a good toward which the only proper and adequate attitude is love. We need to love the other person and not look at them as a means to get what we want, right? We see them as an end in and of themselves, someone to be sought after, to be cherished, respected, and loved.